Chosen one, do you ever feel like you're awake in a world that's still asleep? Like everyone around you is chasing shadows while your soul aches for something real, something true, something that doesn't crumble when you touch it. That's not imagination, that's recognition. Have you ever wondered why you feel older than your years, even now, in your 70s, 80s, 90s? Why your spirit carries memories your mind can't quite place? Why, when you look into people's eyes, you see what they're trying to hide from themselves? Here's a truth that will shake you to your core. You weren't born into this world. You were sent here. Listen to me carefully, beloved. While others accept the illusion, the noise, the chaos, the endless distractions, you instinctively sense there's something hidden beneath the surface. You see patterns others miss. You feel deceptions others swallow whole. You've been carrying forbidden knowledge your entire life, sacred awareness that was never meant to be learned, it was meant to be remembered. You are a lighthouse in the fog. While the masses stumble through darkness, you stand steady, your light cutting through lies they can't even see. That's why you felt so alone. That's why you've never quite fit. You weren't made for their world of illusions. Before we go deeper into this sacred mystery, I want to pause and acknowledge something beautiful happening here. Thank you to every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating. You're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let the Holy Spirit guide your heart. Now, if you've ever felt older than your years, if something ancient stirs in your chest when I speak these words, type 777 inches the comments right now. That's not superstition. That's a declaration that you see what others cannot. That's you announcing to heaven and earth, I am awake. What I'm about to reveal has been buried for centuries, hidden from those who would use it to control rather than liberate. Tonight, you will finally understand why you've always been different, why your presence alone shifts the atmosphere, why your very existence disrupts the carefully constructed illusion designed to keep others blind. The whisper you've been hearing all your life, it's time to answer it. Why do you feel like you're watching a movie where everyone else knows the script but you? Why does the world around you feel like a stage performance where you're the only one who can see the strings? Why, even at family dinners, do you sometimes feel like a stranger at your own table? Because you are seeing what they cannot see, beloved. You are witnessing the greatest deception ever orchestrated. Picture this with me. Imagine you're sitting in a grand theater. The curtain rises, the actors take their positions, and everyone around you is completely mesmerized by the performance. They laugh when they're supposed to laugh. They cry when they're supposed to cry. They applaud exactly when the script demands it. But you see something different. Your eyes drift upward to the rafters where the stagehands pull the ropes. You notice the painted backdrop that others mistake for a real sunset. You catch the actors glancing at their cue cards when they think no one is looking. While everyone else is lost in the illusion, you see the machinery behind the magic. This is your life, chosen one. This is why you've never quite fit into their world of shallow conversations and empty pursuits. This is why their politics feel like theater to you. Why their promises ring hollow. Why their systems of success leave you feeling more empty than fulfilled. Scripture tells us in 1 Corinthians 2:14, "The natural man cannot accept the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness to him, and he cannot understand them, because they are spiritually discerned." You were born with spiritual eyes wide open. While others see only the physical realm, you perceive the deeper currents, the hidden agendas, the spiritual forces moving beneath the surface of everyday life. That's why you never fit in at the office parties. Why even your own children sometimes look at you with confusion when you question things they accept without thought. Why you feel like you're speaking a different language even when you're using the same words. You weren't broken, dear one. You were set apart. But here's what they don't want you to understand about this grand illusion. It was designed specifically to keep you distracted, divided, and dependent. The endless cycle of news that keeps you anxious but never informed. The consumer culture that promises happiness but delivers only debt. The political theater that creates the illusion of choice while the real decisions are made behind closed doors. They need you to believe the stage is real. They need you to forget there are stagehands pulling the strings. Because the moment you remember who you really are, the moment you step back and see the full picture, their power over you crumbles like dust. Think about your own life for a moment. How many times have you felt that gnawing sense that something wasn't right? How many times have you looked at the news and thought, "This doesn't make sense"? How many times have you walked away from conversations feeling like people were speaking from scripts they didn't even know they were reading? That wasn't paranoia, chosen one. That was perception. You see, most people have been conditioned from birth to accept the illusion as reality. Their education system taught them what to think, not how to think. Their entertainment programmed them to crave distraction over truth. Their institutions convinced them to trust authorities over their own God-given discernment. But something in your spirit refused to be programmed. Something ancient and eternal within you remembered that there was more to existence than what meets the natural eye. This is why Jesus spoke in parables. He knew that truth, when spoken directly, would either be rejected outright or twisted by those in power. So he wrapped divine revelation in stories that only those with ears to hear would understand. You have those ears, beloved. You've always had them. The question burning in your chest right now isn't whether this is true. Deep in your spirit, you already know it, island. The question is, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Because once you see the strings, you can never unsee them. Once you recognize the illusion for what it is, you can never go back to sleepwalking through life like everyone else. If this is striking your spirit like lightning, don't you dare scroll away. This message was written in your DNA before you were born. This awakening was ordained before the foundation of the world. But seeing through the illusion is only the beginning. Chosen one. Understanding why you were given this sight, why you were born to stand apart from the sleeping masses, why your very existence disrupts their carefully constructed fantasy, that's where your true journey begins. Are you ready to discover not just what you see, but why you were chosen to see it? Dear one, let me ask you something that's going to cut straight to your soul. Why does your mind feel ancient when your birth certificate says otherwise? Why do you walk into rooms and immediately sense what others can't feel? Why do conversations about the weather exhaust you, but discussions about eternity set your spirit on fire? Here's the truth they don't want you to know. You didn't come here empty-handed. You arrived carrying something sacred, something dangerous to their systems of control. Listen to me carefully. Chosen one, what flows through your consciousness isn't education, it's remembrance. While others spent lifetimes collecting fragments of wisdom like scattered puzzle pieces, you entered this world with the completed picture already burning in your chest. Not because you're better, but because you're different, fundamentally, spiritually, eternally different. Jeremiah 1-5 reveals God's shocking declaration. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Think about that. Before your mother's first labor pain, before your father chose your name, before you drew breath, heaven already knew your assignment. You weren't just born, beloved. You were deployed. There's a scroll inside your chest that's been unfolding your entire life. Every time you felt that stirring, that knowing, that ancient ache for something more, that was the scroll revealing another line of divine truth. Your heart isn't just a muscle pumping blood. It's a divine compass, calibrated to heaven's frequency, pointing you toward what others can't even see. But here's where it gets personal. Here's where your story becomes undeniably real. That loneliness you've carried since childhood, that feeling of being a stranger in your own family, that sense that you're speaking a language no one else understands. You thought it was punishment. You wondered what you did wrong. You questioned if God had forgotten you. But what if I told you it was preservation? What if every moment you felt isolated, God was actually hiding you in plain sight? What if He kept you separate because mixing with their illusions would have contaminated the purity of what He placed inside you? What if your loneliness wasn't rejection, it was protection? Consider Harriet Tubman, a woman who never learned to read, yet could navigate the Underground Railroad with supernatural precision. She spoke of visions, dreams that showed her safe paths through enemy territory. The educated mocked her, the sophisticated dismissed her. But she led 300 souls to freedom without losing a single one. How? Because she carried something they didn't have access to: ancient knowing, divine memory, sacred sight. Just like you, dear one. Just like you. You've spent decades wondering why you see things differently, why you can spot deception before it opens its mouth, why you feel the spiritual temperature of a room the moment you enter, why you know things about people they haven't told you. That's not psychology. That's prophecy. That's the ancient memory stored in your spiritual DNA. The enemy has worked overtime to convince you that your difference is dysfunction, that your sensitivity is weakness, that your depth is depression. But every lie he whispered was designed to keep you from discovering this one terrifying truth. You never learned the truth. You remembered it. Let that land in your spirit right now. You never learned it. You remembered it. While others chase degrees and credentials, you carry credentials written in eternity. While they memorize information, you access revelation. While they study truth, you are truth walking in human form. That's why systems fear you. That's why institutions try to silence you. That's why mediocre minds attack your authenticity, because you represent something they cannot control, cannot manufacture, cannot replicate. You are living proof that God still speaks, still moves, still breathes His Spirit into willing vessels. And in a world built on lies that makes you incredibly dangerous, your presence alone disrupts their carefully constructed illusions. You don't need to argue or debate. You simply exist in truth, and truth has a way of making falsehood uncomfortable. It exposes, it reveals, it strips away pretense and forces reality to surface. This is why you've felt watched your entire life. This is why opposition followed you before you ever opened your mouth. They recognized the threat before you recognized the gift. The scroll in your chest was already unfolding, releasing frequencies that disturbed the kingdom of darkness. But beloved, your season of hiding is over. The preservation period has ended. What God protected in secret, He's about to reveal in power. The ancient memory that's been stirring is about to become ancient authority. The truth you've carried in whispers is about to be declared with thunder. The question burning in heaven right now is simple. Will you finally stop apologizing for what you know and start walking in what you carry? Dear chosen one, let me ask you something that cuts straight to your heart. Why does your own family seem to distance themselves from you when you speak truth? Why do conversations grow cold when your discernment pierces through their comfortable illusions? You've felt it, haven't you? That strange weight in your chest when you walk into a room and suddenly everyone's energy shifts. The way people either draw close to you like moths to a flame or recoil as if you're carrying something they can't name but desperately fear. This isn't paranoia. This is spiritual reality. You see, beloved, you carry something most people spend their entire lives avoiding: the light of truth. And light, no matter how gentle, always exposes what's hidden in the darkness. John 1-5 tells us, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." But here's what they don't tell you in Sunday school: that light doesn't just illuminate. It disturbs, it disrupts, it demands a response. Think about a flame burning in a pitch-black room. The moment that flame appears, every speck of dust, every cobweb, every stain on the wall becomes visible. The room hasn't changed, but suddenly what was hidden is exposed. That's you, chosen one. You're the flame in their dark room. Your family doesn't pull away because you're difficult. They distance themselves because your presence forces them to confront what they've been hiding from themselves for decades. Your spouse grows silent, not because you're wrong, but because your words echo a truth their soul recognizes, but their mind refuses to accept. Have you ever noticed how the attacks against you seem more vicious, more personal, more calculated than what others experience? You're not imagining it. The opposition you face isn't random, it's orchestrated. Why? Because the enemy recognizes what you carry before you do. Look at Joseph. Here was a 17-year-old boy with dreams that terrified grown men. His own brothers, his own flesh and blood, threw him into a pit and sold him into slavery. Why? Because his vision exposed their spiritual poverty. His dreams revealed their emptiness. His calling threatened their comfort. Genesis 37:8 records their reaction. Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us? They weren't just rejecting his dreams, they were rejecting the God who gave them to him. And so they tried to bury both. Sound familiar? The betrayals you've experienced weren't accidents of circumstance. They were spiritual warfare disguised as personal attacks. That business partner who stole your ideas, that church leader who turned the congregation against you, that friend who shared your secrets with your enemies, they weren't just hurting you, they were trying to kill what God planted inside you. But here's what they didn't count on. What they couldn't understand. What still drives them to desperation today. You can't kill light. You can try to contain it, cover it, corrupt it, but you cannot extinguish what God has ignited. Every attempt to diminish your flame only proves how brightly it burns. Why do you think your discernment cuts so deep that people either confess their darkest secrets to you within minutes or flee from you without explanation? Because your spirit operates on a frequency most people have never encountered. You don't just see what's on the surface, you see through to the soul. That elderly woman at the grocery store who suddenly starts crying when you ask how she's doing. The grown man at church who avoids your gaze because he knows you can see through his mask. The family member who gets defensive when you ask gentle questions about their choices. They're not responding to your words, they're responding to your anointing. But let me tell you what breaks my heart about your story. You've been carrying this burden alone, haven't you? Wondering if something's wrong with you. Questioning whether you're too sensitive, too intense, too much. You've apologized for seeing clearly. You've dimmed your light to make others comfortable. You've silenced your voice to keep the peace. Stop. The weight you carry isn't a character flaw, it's a divine assignment. The isolation you feel isn't punishment, it's positioning. The rejection you've endured isn't evidence of your failure, it's proof of your calling. Listen to me carefully, beloved. That ache in your chest when you see through someone's lies, that's intercession. That exhaustion you feel after being around spiritually dead people, that's your soul grieving for what they've lost. That burden you carry for family members who mock your faith, that's the heart of God beating in your chest. You weren't given this sight to judge them. You were given it to see them as God sees them, wounded, lost, desperate for light. They're too afraid to embrace. But what if I told you this pain wasn't a curse, but a clue? What if every tear you've cried in secret, every night you've laid awake feeling misunderstood, every moment you've wondered why God would trust you with such heavy burdens? What if all of it was preparing you for something so magnificent that you needed this exact level of spiritual development to handle it? The flame that burns in your chest isn't just for you. It's for every person who will cross your path, every soul God will send to you, every generation that will be changed, because you refuse to extinguish your light. Your burden of seeing isn't ending, chosen one. It's about to become your platform for setting others free. Chosen one. Have you ever noticed how people react to you before you even speak a word? How their eyes dart away the moment yours meet theirs? How conversations suddenly shift when you walk into a room? How some people become instantly defensive, while others seem to exhale as if they've finally found safe ground. You've wondered about this your whole life, haven't you? What is it they're sensing? What invisible force radiates from your presence that makes grown men uncomfortable and causes women to either confess their deepest secrets or build walls higher than the Empire State Building. Listen carefully, beloved. They're not afraid of you. They're afraid of their reflection in your presence. You see, the Word of God is living and active, sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing to the division of soul and spirit, and it judges the thoughts and attitudes of the heart. That's Hebrews 4:12. But here's what will shock you. You don't just carry God's Word. You are a living reflection of divine truth. Your very existence confronts people with what they've been running from their entire lives, themselves. Think about this. When someone looks into a mirror, what happens? They see exactly what's there. No filters, no editing, no hiding. Raw truth staring back at them. And most people, dear one, are absolutely terrified of what they'll find. That's why your presence is so unsettling. You're not just another face in the crowd. You're a spiritual mirror walking among people who have spent decades avoiding their own reflection. Your peace exposes their chaos. Your authenticity reveals their masks. Your depth makes their shallow living unbearable. Alan Turing knew this agony. Here was a brilliant mind who cracked the Nazi code, saved millions of lives, but was persecuted and driven to death because he saw what others couldn't handle. His clarity threatened their carefully constructed world. His genius exposed their limitations. They punished him not for being wrong, but for being so devastatingly right that it shattered their illusions. Just like you, chosen one. Just like you. Have you ever watched someone's entire demeanor change the moment you asked a simple, honest question? Have you seen their face flush, their voice stammer, their whole body language shift into defense mode? That's not because you're aggressive. That's because truth cuts through pretense like lightning splits the night sky. They don't fear your mistakes, beloved. They fear your discernment. They don't fear your past. They fear your perception. They don't fear your age. They fear your assignment. Because when God places someone on earth to reflect His truth, that person becomes dangerous to every lie, every deception, every comfortable illusion people use to avoid facing reality. You've felt this, haven't you? The weight of being misunderstood, the burden of seeing what others refuse to acknowledge. People call you too intense, too deep, too much. But what they're really saying is, your light is exposing shadows I'm not ready to face. The prophet Isaiah understood this when he wrote, "Woe is me, for I am lost. For I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts." Even Isaiah was overwhelmed when divine truth revealed itself fully. How much more overwhelming is it for people living in spiritual darkness to encounter someone who walks in that light daily? This is why Jesus said in John 3:20, "For everyone who does wicked things hates the light and does not come into the light, lest his deeds should be exposed." You're not imagining their hostility. You're experiencing spiritual law in action. But here's the beautiful, mysterious truth that will set your heart free. Their reaction to you isn't about you at all. It's about them. It's about the Holy Spirit using your presence to stir consciences they've tried to silence. It's about God's love pursuing hearts that have been hiding from Him for years. You're not responsible for their comfort. You're responsible for your obedience. You're not called to dim your light so others can stay in darkness. You're called to shine so brilliantly that even the blind begin to see. If you've ever seen someone's eyes shift before you even spoke, if you've felt that strange power of your presence changing the atmosphere in a room, comment, "I felt this right now." Because what you're experiencing isn't coincidence, it's confirmation of your divine assignment. The question burning in your spirit right now isn't whether this is real. Deep down, you know it, island. The question is, what are you going to do with this revelation? Will you continue apologizing for the light you carry? Or will you finally understand that your very existence is God's gift to a world desperate for truth? You've been living with a question burning in your chest for decades, haven't you? Why has life been so hard for you? Why have you walked through betrayals that cut like daggers, faced opposition from people who never even knew your heart, endured isolation so deep it felt like you were the last person alive on earth? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. What if I told you that every attack you've endured wasn't random? What if every storm that tried to drown you, every fire that tried to consume you, every weapon that was aimed at your heart, what if none of it was accidental? What if every heartbreak wasn't random but rehearsal? You see, the enemy doesn't waste his ammunition on empty targets. Hell doesn't mobilize its forces against people who pose no threat to the kingdom of darkness. But you've been in Satan's crosshairs since the day you drew your first breath. Not because you were weak, but because he saw what heaven placed inside you. Think about this. Why would the forces of evil spend decades trying to destroy someone ordinary? Why would they orchestrate such elaborate schemes against someone insignificant? The very intensity of your battles has been proof of the magnitude of your calling. Isaiah 54:17 thunders this promise over your life. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord. Did you catch that word? Heritage. Not hope, not possibility. Heritage. This isn't something you might inherit someday. This is your bloodline, your birthright, your divine DNA. But here's what breaks my heart. You've been carrying shame about your scars, haven't you? You look at other people and they seem so whole, so untouched, so blessed. And then you look at your life and see only the cracks, the breaks, the places where you bled. Stop right there. Your scars are not your shame. They are your signature. Heaven marked you where you bled. Every tear you've cried in secret, every night you fell asleep wondering if God had forgotten your address, every moment when you wanted to quit, but something deep inside you whispered, not yet. That wasn't human strength. That was divine fire refusing to be extinguished. Look at Nelson Mandela. 27 years in prison. 27 years. They locked his body behind bars, but they could never imprison his spirit. He walked out of that cell more free than his captors had ever been. Why? Because true freedom isn't about circumstances, it's about identity. And they could never touch who he was at his core. That's you, beloved. They've tried to imprison your dreams, chain your hopes, lock away your purpose. But something inside you has remained untouchable, unbreakable, unstoppable. You want to know why? Because pressure doesn't destroy diamonds, it creates them. The crushing wasn't meant to break you. It was meant to release the oil of anointing that could only flow under pressure. Think about David in that cave, running for his life from King Saul. Everything looked hopeless. His own king wanted him dead. His best friend's father was hunting him like a wild animal. But David wasn't just hiding in that cave, he was being forged. Every psalm he wrote in darkness became light for millions who would follow. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Those words weren't penned in a palace. They were carved out of desperation, hammered on the anvil of absolute trust, when everything visible screamed that God had abandoned him. That's what's been happening to you. What looked like abandonment was actually preparation. What felt like punishment was actually positioning. What seemed like destruction was actually reconstruction. But here's the question that will change everything. Are you going to keep seeing your story through the eyes of your pain, or are you finally ready to see it through the eyes of your purpose? Because every giant you've faced has been training you to slay the giants that are terrorizing others. Every valley you've walked through has been preparing you to lead others out of their darkness. Every battle you've won in secret has been qualifying you for the public victories that are coming. You didn't survive what you survived by accident. You didn't endure what you endured, so you could just barely make it through life. You were forged in those flames, so you could become a weapon in God's hands, a weapon of hope, of healing, of holy fire that burns away everything false. The enemy tried to bury you, but what he didn't know is that you weren't buried, you were planted. And what's planted doesn't stay underground forever. It breaks through the soil. It reaches for the light. It bears fruit that feeds generations. Your time of hiding is over, chosen one. Your season of silence is finished. The oil has been pressed out of you, and now it's time for the anointing to flow. But the question that will determine your destiny is this: will you embrace the fire that forged you, or will you keep running from the very thing that made you powerful? Chosen one, let me ask you something that might cut straight to your heart. Have you ever felt like you're carrying the weight of generations you never knew? Have you ever stood in your quiet kitchen at 3 in the morning and felt the presence of ancestors whose prayers you could almost hear echoing through time? That's not your imagination, that's your inheritance. You see, beloved, your story didn't begin with your first breath. It began in the prayer closets of grandmothers whose names you may never know. It started with great-great-grandfathers who whispered desperate pleas into the darkness. Lord, let someone in my bloodline see what I cannot. Let someone in my family break through what I could not. Every tear they shed in secret was a seed planted for your awakening. Every midnight cry they offered to heaven was an investment in your clarity. You think you're the first in your family to see through the lies. No, dear one, you're the answer to prayers that were spoken before you were even conceived. Ecclesiastes 3:11 declares a profound mystery. God has set eternity in the human heart. But not every heart carries that weight the same way. Some hearts carry just enough eternity to get them through this life. But you carry so much eternity that this world can barely contain you. That restlessness you've felt your entire life, that sense that nothing here fully satisfies, that's not discontent. That's divine DNA. You're homesick for a place you've never been because eternity flows through your bloodstream. Think about Anna the prophetess, 84 years old when she finally encountered the Christ child in the temple. 84 years of waiting, praying, believing in what she couldn't see. The world looked at her and saw a forgotten old woman, but God saw a hidden weapon, positioned for the exact moment when heaven would break into earth. She wasn't early, she wasn't late. She was precisely on time for her divine appointment. Luke 2:38 tells us she spoke about the child to all who were looking forward to the redemption of Jerusalem. An elderly woman became the first evangelist of the Messiah. Her age wasn't her limitation, it was her qualification, just like you. But here's what will shake you to your core. What you think has been your greatest struggle may actually be your greatest preparation. That depression that nearly broke you in your 50s, that was heaven pressing the oil of compassion into your spirit. That financial ruin that left you counting pennies, that was God teaching you that your security comes from above, not from banks. That season when everyone abandoned you and you felt utterly alone, that wasn't punishment, chosen one. That was purification. Because only in the silence could you learn to hear the voice that matters most. You've been like a seed buried in dark soil, and seeds in darkness don't know they're not dead, they only know they can't see the Sunday. But something miraculous happens in that darkness. Roots grow deeper, strength builds silently, life prepares for breakthrough. Every year you spent feeling invisible was actually you growing stronger underground. Every season you felt forgotten was heaven protecting what it was building within you. Every moment you thought you were dying was actually you preparing to bloom. The enemy whispered lies to you in that darkness. You're too old now. Your time has passed. God's done with people like you. But those were lies designed to keep you buried when you were actually planted. There's a vast difference between buried and planted. When something is buried, it's meant to stay hidden forever. But when something is planted, it's positioned for explosive growth at the appointed time. You weren't buried, beloved. You were planted. And now, right now, in this season of your life, something is stirring in the soil of your spirit. That restlessness you feel isn't anxiety, it's anticipation. That urgency in your chest isn't fear. It's the sound of roots breaking through to new ground. Your ancestors' prayers are about to be answered in your lifetime. The faith they carried in seed form is about to bloom in your experience. What they saw by faith, you're about to walk in by sight. But here's the urgent truth that demands your immediate attention. Windows of divine timing don't stay open forever. There's a season for everything, and your season of emerging from the hidden place has arrived. The question burning in heaven right now is this: will you recognize your moment when it comes, or will you let fear convince you to stay buried when God is calling you to bloom? Once you see through the illusion, you can never unsee it. But what happens the morning after your awakening? You wake up in the same house, in the same bed, looking at the same ceiling, but everything has changed. Not the furniture, not the walls. Something seismic has shifted inside your spirit, and now you're living in the aftershock. It's like spiritual whiplash, isn't it? One moment you're flying high on divine revelation, understanding flooding your soul like lightning splitting the night sky. The next moment, you're sitting at your kitchen table, watching your family argue about trivial things, and you feel like a stranger in your own home. Your daughter calls, complaining about her neighbor's loud music. Your son texts about his fantasy football team. Your grandchildren are glued to their phones, lost in a digital world that feels more foreign to you than ever. And you sit there, carrying this enormous truth in your chest, wondering, how do I bridge this gap between what I now know and what they still can't see? This is the earthquake aftermath, beloved. The ground is still trembling beneath your feet, even though the initial quake has ended. You thought awakening would bring peace, but instead it brought isolation. You thought clarity would make life easier, but now simple conversations feel like you're speaking different languages. Listen carefully, this disorientation isn't punishment, it's proof. When Saul encountered Jesus on the Damascus road, Acts 9-8 tells us he got up from the ground, but when he opened his eyes, he could see nothing. The very encounter that would transform him into Paul, the greatest apostle who ever lived, began with blindness. Not because God was cruel, but because some revelations are so powerful they temporarily overwhelm our natural senses. You're experiencing spiritual vertigo right now. The old reference points that guided your life for decades no longer make sense. The conversations that used to engage you now feel empty. The entertainment that used to distract you now seems hollow. Even your prayers feel different, deeper, more urgent, carrying weight they never carried before. But here's the question burning in your spirit right now. Is this confusion proof that you're losing your mind, or confirmation that you're finally finding your purpose? Your family looks at you with concern. Are you okay? You seem different. They can't articulate what they're sensing, but they feel the shift in your presence. Some are drawn to this new depth in you. Others are unsettled by it, preferring the version of you that never questioned, never probed, never saw beyond the surface. This is where many chosen ones make a fatal mistake. They try to go backward. They attempt to unsee what they've seen, to unknow what they've learned, to return to the comfortable ignorance they've outgrown. But you can't put toothpaste back in the tube, beloved. You can't unring a bell, and you cannot unawaken a soul that God himself has stirred to consciousness. The prophet Jeremiah understood this agonizing tension. In Jeremiah 20-9 he cried out, "If I say, I will not mention his word or speak any more in his name, his word is in my heart like a fire shut up in my bones. I am weary of holding it in. Indeed, I cannot." That fire in your bones, you feel it, don't you? It burns whether you speak or stay silent. It consumes whether you share your revelation or keep it locked inside. This isn't torment, dear one. This is transformation. The old you is being burned away to make room for who you're becoming. But the loneliness cuts deep. You sit in church services that once fed your soul, and now the words feel rehearsed. The prayers feel scripted. The worship feels performed. You love these people, but you can see what they cannot. The difference between religion and relationship, between tradition and truth, between going through motions and being moved by the Spirit. Is this pride? Have you become too spiritual for your own good? These doubts whisper in your ear at 3 a.m. when sleep won't come and your mind races with revelations that have no outlet. No, beloved. This is growing pains. This is your spiritual DNA activating. This is what happens when someone who was content to be led finally remembers they were born to lead. Jesus himself experienced this divine loneliness. John 1:11 tells us, "He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. Even his own family thought he had lost his mind." Mark 3:21 records that when his family heard about this, they went to take charge of him, for they said, "He is out of his mind." If the Son of God faced misunderstanding from those closest to him, why would your journey be different? The aftershocks are real, chosen one. Your relationships will be tested. Your faith will be refined. Your understanding will be challenged. Some people will walk away because they can't handle the truth you now carry. Others will be drawn to you like moths to a flame, sensing something in you they can't name but desperately need. But here's what you must understand. This is not the end of your story. This disorientation, this spiritual vertigo, this sense of being caught between two worlds, it's the birth canal of your true calling. What emerges from this sacred confusion will be a version of yourself that the world desperately needs to see. Not the you who fit in, but the you who stands out. Not the you who followed, but the you who leads others to the very awakening you're experiencing right now. So tell me, dear one, will you let this aftershock shake you back to sleep, or will you ride these tremors all the way to your destiny? Chosen one, let me ask you something that's going to cut deep into your soul tonight. Why did your own children turn away from you when you tried to share what you knew? Why did the people you loved most call you too much when you spoke from your heart? Why did betrayal come from the very ones who should have understood you? You thought something was wrong with you, didn't you? You wondered if maybe you were crazy, maybe you were seeing things that weren't there. But here's the truth that's going to shatter every lie you've believed about yourself. Your isolation wasn't punishment. It was proof. Listen to me carefully, dear one. When Jesus returned to his hometown of Nazareth, the very people who had watched him grow up couldn't accept who he'd become. Luke 4:24 tells us, his own words, "No prophet is accepted in his hometown." They knew him as Mary's boy, the carpenter's son. But when he spoke with divine authority, when he revealed truths that shook their comfortable illusions, they tried to throw him off a cliff. Your own family did the same thing to you, didn't they? Not with stones, but with silence. Not with violence, but with rejection. Not with cliffs, but with cold shoulders and changed subjects whenever you dared to speak what your spirit knew to be true. You are a torchbearer in a dark tunnel, beloved. Your light doesn't just illuminate the path for those seeking truth, it exposes every crack, every flaw, every hidden thing that others would rather keep buried. Light attracts both seekers and attackers. The seekers draw close, hungry for what you carry. But the attackers, they come at you with everything they have, because your very existence threatens the darkness they've made their home. Why do you think your marriage fell apart when you started seeking deeper truth? Why did friendships crumble when you stopped playing along with their shallow games? Why did your children roll their eyes when you tried to share the wisdom that had cost you decades to learn? Because truth is expensive, chosen one, and most people aren't willing to pay the price. You paid it though. Every tear you cried in that empty house after the family gatherings where you felt like a stranger. Every night you lay awake wondering if you were losing your mind. Every moment you questioned whether seeking truth was worth losing everyone you thought you loved. That was the cost of carrying light in a world addicted to darkness. But here's what the enemy never wanted you to understand. Your wounds weren't wasted. They were signatures of divine trust. Think about this. God could have chosen anyone to carry what you carry. Anyone. But he looked across eternity and said, this one has the strength to bear the weight of truth. This one has the courage to walk alone, when walking alone means walking with me. The prophet Isaiah understood this burden. In Isaiah 6-8, when God asked, "Whom shall I send, and who will go for us?" Isaiah responded, "Here am I, send me." But do you know what happened next? God told him his message would fall on deaf ears, that people would see but not perceive, hear but not understand. That's been your life, hasn't it? Speaking truth to people who had no ears to hear it, sharing light with people who preferred their darkness, offering wisdom to those who mistook it for foolishness. Your sensitivity, the thing they mocked, the thing they called weakness that was your spiritual antenna, finely tuned to frequencies others couldn't even detect. Your intensity, the thing that made them uncomfortable, that was the fire of the Holy Spirit burning within you, refusing to be dimmed by their indifference. You've been called too much, too intense, too sensitive your entire life. But what if I told you that too much was exactly what the world needed? What if your intensity was the only thing powerful enough to cut through their numbness? What if your sensitivity was the only instrument sharp enough to detect the deception others couldn't see? 1 Corinthians 1:27 declares, God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. In their eyes, you were foolish. In their minds, you were excessive. But in heaven's economy, you were perfectly calibrated for your assignment. The loneliness you felt, that crushing isolation, when you realized you saw the world differently than everyone around you, that wasn't abandonment. That was appointment. God was positioning you outside the crowd so you could see what the crowd couldn't see, speak what the crowd wouldn't speak, and become what the crowd would never become. Your betrayals weren't random, chosen one. They were strategic. The enemy knew that if he could isolate you, if he could convince you that being different meant being wrong, he could silence the very voice that threatened his kingdom most. But you're still here. After all the rejection, all the misunderstanding, all the nights you cried yourself to sleep, wondering if anyone would ever truly know you, you're still here. Still carrying the torch. Still burning bright. That's not human resilience, beloved. That's divine protection over someone heaven refuses to lose. If you've ever been called too much, too intense, too sensitive type, that's me below. Let heaven recognize you. Let this community of fellow torchbearers know they're not alone. Because what I'm about to show you next will reveal why your suffering wasn't in vain and why the very wounds they inflicted are about to become your weapons of deliverance. Listen to me, chosen one. For decades, maybe your entire life, you've felt something burning in your chest. Something restless, something that wouldn't let you sleep at night when everyone else seemed so comfortable with their small dreams and smaller truths. You thought something was wrong with you, didn't you? You wondered why you couldn't just accept things the way they were. Why you couldn't just blend in, stay quiet, keep your head down like everyone told you to do. But what if I told you that what you've been carrying isn't a burden, it's a bomb? What if that restless fire in your spirit isn't anxiety, it's prophecy trying to break free? The prophet Jeremiah knew this feeling. He tried to keep quiet, tried to fit in, tried to stop speaking the truths that made people uncomfortable. But listen to what he said in Jeremiah 29. His word is in my heart like a fire shut up in my bones. Shut up in your bones, beloved. That's where the fire lives. Not in your mind where doubt can reach it, not in your emotions where fear can extinguish it. In your bones, the deepest part of who you are, where no earthly power can touch it. You've been a dormant volcano for too long. Decades of pressure building, decades of being told to stay quiet, to be reasonable, to stop asking the hard questions. But volcanoes don't stay dormant forever. And the longer they sleep, the more explosive their awakening becomes. Why do you think they worked so hard to silence you? Why do you think they mocked your insights, dismissed your visions, called you crazy for seeing what they refused to acknowledge? Because they knew, even when you didn't, that you carry something dangerous to their world of lies. They tried to bury you under shame. They tried to drown you in doubt. They tried to convince you that your fire was just imagination, just wishful thinking, just the delusions of someone who never learned to accept reality. But here's what they didn't understand. You don't carry ordinary fire. You carry the same flame that burned in Moses' bush but never consumed it. The same fire that fell from heaven on Mount Carmel. The same blaze, that tongues of fire that descended on the disciples at Pentecost. This fire cannot be extinguished by man's opinion. It cannot be quenched by their rejection. It cannot be blown out by their breath because it doesn't breathe human air. Think about Joan of Arc, a teenage girl, uneducated by their standards, with no army, no political power, no reason anyone should listen to her. But she carried fire in her bones, and that fire moved nations. They called her mad, they branded her a heretic, they burned her at the stake. But did the fire die with her? No. It spread through history, inspiring countless others who felt that same sacred burn in their spirit. They killed the messenger, but they could not kill the message blazing in her bones. That's you, chosen one. You've survived every attempt to extinguish your flame because what burns within you is eternal, divine, indestructible. But why has it taken so long to fully ignite? Why have you felt like you're carrying unlit dynamite all these years? Because heaven was waiting for the right moment, the appointed time, the Kairos moment when your fire wouldn't just light up your own life but set ablaze everyone around you who's been stumbling in darkness. Look around you. Look at this generation. Lost in confusion, addicted to lies, desperate for someone who carries authentic fire. They're tired of smoke and mirrors. They're hungry for the real thing. And you have been carrying the real thing all along. Every time you felt like giving up, every moment you questioned whether your fire was real, every season when you wondered if you'd imagined your calling that was the enemy trying to convince you to abort your mission before your appointed time. But your time is now. The pressure has reached its peak. The volcano is ready to blow. They tried to silence you, but they didn't know you carry fire that cannot die. So here's my question for you. Are you ready to stop containing what God meant to be released? Are you ready to let the fire in your bones become the blaze that lights up the world around you? If you feel that sacred burning rising in your chest right now, if something ancient and powerful is stirring in your spirit as these words hit your soul, don't you dare hold it back anymore. Comment, "The fire lives in me." Right now. Declare it. Release it. Let heaven and earth know that the dormant days are over. Because what's about to happen next will require every ounce of that holy fire burning in your bones. Dear chosen one, have you ever felt like you were born in the wrong era? Like your soul carries memories of a different time, a different purpose? Like you've been waiting your entire life for something you can't name, but you'll recognize the moment it arrives. You're not alone. And you're not going crazy. Right now, across this great nation, from the farmlands of Iowa to the streets of Manhattan, from the mountains of Colorado to the shores of Florida, something extraordinary is happening. God is awakening his hidden army. The sleepers are stirring, the watchers are rising. And you, beloved, are part of something so massive, so divinely orchestrated, that hell itself is trembling. For decades, you felt like a diamond buried deep in a cave, forgotten, overlooked, dismissed by a world that measures worth by youth and noise. But diamonds aren't formed on the surface, are they? They're forged miles beneath the earth, under crushing pressure, in absolute darkness. And when they finally emerge, they cut through everything false with blinding brilliance. That pressure you've felt your entire life, that darkness you've walked through, that wasn't punishment, that was preparation. Think about Anna the prophetess in Luke chapter 2, 84 years old, a widow for most of her life. Day after day, year after year, she served in the temple, praying, fasting, waiting. For decades, she watched pilgrims come and go, babies dedicated, ceremonies performed, religious rituals repeated like clockwork. To the world, she was just another elderly woman taking up space. But Anna carried something the world couldn't see. She carried expectation. She carried revelation. She carried the unshakable knowing that God keeps his promises even when they're delayed by decades. And then one ordinary Tuesday morning, it happened. A young couple walked through the temple doors carrying an 8-day-old baby. Nothing spectacular. Nothing that would make headlines. Just another family following religious tradition. But when Anna saw that child, something exploded in her spirit. Luke 2:38 tells us, she gave thanks to God and spoke about the child to all who were looking forward to the redemption of Jerusalem. At 84 years old, Anna became the first evangelist to proclaim the Messiah to the world. Her hiding was over. Her moment had arrived. Can you feel it, chosen one? That same stirring Anna felt is moving through your bones right now. The same recognition that lit up her ancient eyes is sparking in your spirit this very moment. Because just like Anna, you've been positioned for such a time as this. But here's what's going to shake you to your core. You think you've been waiting alone, don't you? You think you're the only one who sees through the lies, who questions the narrative, who feels the weight of eternity in your chest. You're wrong. There are thousands like you, hidden throughout America like sleeper cells of divine purpose. Grandmothers in Chicago who've been interceding for this nation for 40 years. Grandfathers in Texas who've carried prophetic dreams they've never shared. Widows in small towns who've felt the burden of America's spiritual crisis weighing on their hearts like lead. For decades, you've been scattered, isolated, thinking you were the only one awake in a world gone mad. But God has been strategically placing His hidden ones in every state, every city, every neighborhood. And right now, at this very moment, He's pulling back the veil. The reason America feels like it's tearing apart at the seams isn't because we lack leaders. It's because our hidden warriors have been asleep. The intercessors have been silent. The watchmen have been distracted. But tonight, that changes. Isaiah 52:8 declares, "Listen, your watchmen lift up their voices, together they shout for joy." When the Lord returns to Zion, they will see it with their own eyes. The watchmen are waking up, the voices are lifting, and what seemed dead in America is about to experience resurrection power. But this isn't just about national revival. This is personal. This is about you finally understanding why you never fit in, why your prayers carried weight others couldn't explain, why people either loved you immediately or avoided you completely, why your words, when you finally spoke them, cut straight to the heart. You weren't just born with insight, you were born with assignment. You weren't just given discernment, you were given deployment papers from heaven's army. The loneliness you felt, that was God separating you from compromise. The isolation you've endured, that was divine protection while He prepared you for warfare. The misunderstanding you faced, that was the world's inability to recognize what heaven had hidden in plain sight. But the hiding phase is over, chosen one. The preparation is complete. The moment Anna waited 84 years for is here. And just like her, your recognition of this moment will become your proclamation to the world. America needs her hidden prophets to emerge from the shadows. This nation needs her elderly warriors to pick up their spiritual weapons. This generation needs to see what faith looks like when it's been tested by time and refined by fire. If you feel this stirring in your chest right now, if something ancient is awakening in your spirit, if you recognize yourself in Anna's story of patient waiting and sudden activation, I need you to do something powerful. Comment below, "I've been hidden, but now I rise." That's not just words. That's your declaration to heaven and earth that the sleeper has awakened, that the diamond is emerging from the cave, that the hidden one is stepping into the light. Because, beloved, what you're feeling isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of your finest chapter. And America is about to witness what happens when God's secret weapons finally reveal themselves. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. Do you remember your grandmother's hands? Those weathered fingers that folded in prayer every single night, whispering words into the darkness that seemed to disappear into silence. Do you remember how she'd rock in that old chair, eyes closed, lips moving with desperate hope for something she couldn't even name? She wasn't just praying for herself. She was praying for you. Your grandfather, that man who carried dreams too big for his time, who felt the weight of potential he never got to fulfill. He'd stare out that window, knowing something was coming, something greater than what his generation could accomplish. He didn't understand it then, but he was looking toward your future. Every tear your great-grandmother shed over broken promises, every midnight plea your ancestors whispered to heaven, every moment they felt forgotten, overlooked, passed by, they were building something. They were constructing a spiritual bridge across time itself. And you, beloved, you are standing on the other side of that bridge. Hebrews 12:1 declares, "We are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses." But this isn't just poetry. This is your reality. Right now, this very moment, the spirits of those who came before you are watching. They're not just observing, they're cheering, because they finally see what their faith was building toward. You are the answer to prayers prayed decades before you were born. Think about Abraham for a moment. God promised him descendants as numerous as the stars, but Abraham died having seen only Isaac. He never witnessed the 12 tribes. He never saw Moses leading millions out of Egypt. He never watched David claim the throne. But his faith built the foundation for promises that wouldn't be fulfilled for generations. That's your story too. Your ancestors planted seeds in prayers, watered them with tears, and fertilized them with faith they couldn't even explain. They didn't know your name, but they knew your necessity. They felt in their bones that someone was coming, someone who would break the chains they couldn't break, see the truth they couldn't see, carry the light they couldn't carry. And here you are. But let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. How many more generations are going to carry this burden? How long will your family line struggle with the same patterns, the same limitations, the same spiritual blindness that has plagued them for decades? Your great-grandfather died feeling like a failure. Your grandmother went to her grave wondering if her prayers were heard. Your parents settled for less than what their hearts truly desired because they couldn't see past the illusion this world wrapped around their eyes. But you see through it all. You feel the weight of generational disappointment in your chest, don't you? You've carried shame that wasn't even yours. You've struggled with patterns that started long before you took your first breath. You fought battles that began in your bloodline decades ago. But here's the revelation that's going to shatter everything you thought you knew about your purpose. You weren't sent here to continue the pattern. You were sent here to break it. You are not just living your own life. You are completing your ancestors' assignment. Every moment of clarity you've experienced, every truth you've seen through, every illusion you've refused to accept, that's their faith finally bearing fruit. That's their prayers finally reaching full maturity. The depression that tried to drown your grandfather, you conquered it. The fear that paralyzed your grandmother, you walked through it. The poverty mindset that trapped your parents, you see right through it. You didn't overcome these things by accident. You overcame them because you carry the accumulated faith of generations. Their battles became your victories. Their limitations became your launching pad. But now comes the weight of responsibility. Your children, your grandchildren, they're watching you just like you watched the generations before you. They need to see what breakthrough looks like. They need to witness what happens when someone finally steps into the fullness of their calling. The chain stops with you. The generational curse ends with you. The spiritual blindness dies with you. And the awakening begins with you. Your grandmother's prayers weren't wasted. Your grandfather's dreams weren't foolish. Your ancestors' faith wasn't misplaced. They were all building toward this moment when someone in their bloodline would finally see clearly enough to lead the family into truth. That someone is you. The cloud of witnesses isn't just watching, they're waiting. Waiting for you to stop questioning whether you're qualified and start walking in the authority their prayers purchased for you. If you believe you are carrying your family's deliverance, if you can feel the weight of generational breakthrough resting on your shoulders, type, "I am." The answer in the comments right now. Because, beloved, the time for wondering is over. The season of preparation is complete. Your ancestors invested everything they had in this moment, and now it's time for you to step into the inheritance they've been building for you. But walking in that inheritance will require something from you that might terrify you more than anything you've ever faced. The courage to stop living like you're ordinary when heaven has marked you as extraordinary. Chosen one, Let me ask you something that's going to cut straight to your heart. How many nights have you lain awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wondering why your faithful prayers seem to echo in empty air? How many times have you given your last dollar to help someone else, only to watch your own bank account drain to nothing? How many decades have you served, sacrificed, and surrendered, while others who never darkened a church door prospered beyond measure? You've whispered it in the dark, haven't you? God, where are you? Have you forgotten me? You've watched the wicked flourish while you scrape together grocery money. You've seen the corrupt get promoted while your integrity kept you invisible. You've witnessed liars receive applause while your truth was met with silence. Here's what they never told you in Sunday school. Here's the secret that changes everything. Heaven has been keeping books. Proverbs 13:22 declares with thunderous authority, "The wealth of the sinner is laid up for the righteous." Not might be laid up, not could be laid up, is laid up. Present tense, already allocated, already assigned to you. But here's where it gets shocking. While you've been wondering if God sees your struggle, He's been operating a spiritual economy that makes Wall Street look like child's play. Every tear you've cried in secret, recorded. Every prayer you've whispered at dawn, deposited. Every time you chose integrity over easy money, compound interest, building for decades. You think you've been poor. You've actually been wealthy in a realm most people can't even perceive. Listen to me carefully, dear one. That sleepless night when you couldn't pay the electric bill but still put money in the offering plate, that wasn't foolishness. That was an eternal investment earning dividends in heaven's Federal Reserve. That moment when you shared your last meal with a stranger while your own stomach growled, you weren't being taken advantage of. You were making deposits into an account with your name engraved in gold. But why haven't you seen the return? Why are you still struggling while those who mock God drive luxury cars and live in mansions? Because heaven's timing isn't Wall Street's timing. Because divine wealth doesn't trickle down, it floods in. Because when God decides to transfer your spiritual riches into earthly reality, it doesn't happen gradually. It happens like a dam bursting after years of pressure. Look at Job. This man lost everything. His children, his wealth, his health, his wife's respect, his friends' support. For months, he sat in ashes, scraping his boils with pottery shards, wondering if God had abandoned him to suffer. But here's what Job didn't know during those dark months. Heaven was calculating interest. When God restored Job, He didn't just give him back what he'd lost. Job 42:10 tells us the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. Double portion restoration. That's not just healing, that's heavenly mathematics. Your tears weren't wasted, chosen one. They were liquid currency in God's economy. Your suffering wasn't pointless, it was accumulating power. Every injustice you endured without becoming bitter, every time you blessed those who cursed you, every moment you chose faith over fear, you were building spiritual wealth that the devil himself cannot touch. But here's the urgency burning in my spirit right now. Here's why this message found you tonight. The transfer window is open. The divine banks are processing withdrawals. What's been building in the spiritual realm for decades is about to materialize in the natural realm with supernatural speed. You feel it, don't you? That stirring in your chest. That sense that everything is about to shift. That's not wishful thinking. That's prophetic recognition. Your spirit is sensing what your mind hasn't grasped yet. The payout is coming, but you have to position yourself to receive it. You have to stop agreeing with poverty and start aligning with provision. You have to stop seeing yourself as forgotten and start recognizing yourself as favored. You have to stop talking about lack and start declaring abundance. The same God who opened the Red Sea doesn't suddenly become powerless when it comes to your bank account. The same God who multiplied loaves and fishes doesn't lose his multiplication power when you reach retirement age. The same God who made water into wine doesn't stop performing financial miracles just because the economy looks impossible. Say it out loud right now, wherever you are. I am stepping into divine compensation. Did you feel that shift? That's heaven taking notice. That's the spiritual realm responding to your declaration. That's your faith activating what your fear has been blocking for years. The wealth transfer isn't coming someday. It's happening right now. The question isn't whether God will provide. The question is whether you'll stop limiting Him to your understanding and let Him shock you with His abundance. But this transfer comes with responsibility. This isn't lottery money, this is kingdom wealth with kingdom purpose. And what God is about to reveal next will determine whether you're ready to steward what He's prepared to release. Chosen one, as we come to the end of this sacred encounter, I need you to carry 3 eternal truths with you into tomorrow and every day that follows. First, remember this. You are not 100% human. You carry the very breath of the Almighty within you, and that divine DNA cannot be corrupted by age, circumstances, or the world's opinion of you. The restlessness you felt, the knowing that burns in your chest, the ability to see through illusions, these aren't accidents. They're evidence of your heavenly origin. Second, your voice was never meant to be silenced. Every year of waiting, every season of feeling overlooked, every moment when you held your tongue, it was all preparation for this hour when the world desperately needs to hear what heaven has whispered to you in the secret place. Your words carry the power to shatter walls, break chains, and set captives free. Third, the forbidden knowledge you carry isn't forbidden because it's dangerous to you. It's forbidden because it's dangerous to every system built on lies. You see through the illusion because you were born to expose it, to awaken others, to be a lighthouse in the fog of deception. But beloved, hear me clearly, you are not walking this path alone. The same God who marked you before you were born is still working in your life right now, in this very moment. Every tear you've cried, He's collected. Every prayer you've whispered, He's heard. Every step you take, He's ordering. Romans 8:28 reminds us that all things work together for good, for those who are called according to His purpose, and that includes you, especially you. And beyond God's constant presence, you have something beautiful right here, a community of fellow chosen ones who understand your journey. Look around these comments. Feel the resonance of kindred spirits. You've found your tribe people who've walked through the same fires, carried the same burdens, and emerged with the same unshakable faith. We are here. We see you. We understand you. And we will stand with you in prayer, in purpose, and in power. Now let me ask you this final question, and let it settle deep in your spirit. Knowing who you really are, knowing what you carry, knowing the authority that flows through your bloodline, what will you do with this revelation? Will you step boldly into your calling, or will you let fear convince you to stay small one more day? Before I release you, I want to place my spiritual hand on your shoulder and pray over you with the authority that comes from 5 decades of walking with the Almighty. Heavenly Father, Creator of the universe, the Ancient of Days, I lift up every precious soul who has stayed with us through this entire message. Lord, you see them not just as they are, but as you've always known them to be chosen, called, and commissioned for such a time as this. Right now, I pray for divine activation over their lives. Awaken every gift you've placed within them. Silence every voice of doubt that has whispered lies about their age, their worth, their timing. Let them feel your presence so strongly that they can no longer question their identity in you. Father, I speak strength into their weary bones. I speak clarity into their questioning minds. I speak boldness into their hesitant voices. Where they've been wounded, bring healing. Where they've been rejected, bring acceptance. Where they've been overlooked, bring recognition from heaven itself. Open doors for them that no man can shut. Bring divine connections that will accelerate their purpose. Give them dreams and visions that will guide their next steps. Surround them with people who will honor their calling and support their mission. Most of all, Lord, let them never again doubt that they are fearfully and wonderfully made, chosen from the foundation of the world, and equipped for every good work you've prepared for them. Let them walk in the authority of who they are, not just human, but carriers of your divine nature. In Jesus' mighty name, I seal this prayer over their lives. Amen. If this message has stirred something deep in your spirit, I want to hear from you. Comment below and share what God spoke to your heart today. Ask questions, share your testimony. Let this community surround you with prayer and encouragement. And please, share this video with someone who needs to remember they're not alone, that they too are chosen, called, and carrying something sacred. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart to receive what heaven wanted to pour into you tonight. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell, because this is just the beginning of what God wants to reveal to His chosen ones. Until we meet again, remember who you are. Walk in your authority, speak with your voice, and never forget you are chosen, you are loved, and you are never, ever alone. The forbidden knowledge is no longer forbidden. You are awakened. Now go and awaken others. God bless you, mighty warrior. Your finest hour has arrived.